So let's charge the damn mound. Bryce Harper is back. I can't believe I'm saying this, Kratzy. You're the Philly guy. 160 days after Tommy John surgery, that is a record to come back in Major League Baseball. I know it's not a pitcher, it's a position player, and I know he's going to go back as a DH at first. But the target date that we were hearing in the offseason was the second half of the season. That's like mid-July. It's May 2nd, and he's back for the Phils. Your thoughts?
He said, no, I want to get a couple games in before Cinco de Mayo. He had this circled in his calendar, and I don't get it. Like, this guy's got something different coursing through his veins to be able to come back this quickly. But you hear of some people that can heal quick. My biggest thing would be make sure you're ready. No rehab. He's going to rehab against the Dodgers. Like, that's – and he's going up against Urias too, who's not an easy customer for righties or lefties. But for Harper coming back, it will definitely put a jolt in their lineup. Whether he swings it tonight or not, to me, I'd want to see what he does in the first 2 weeks, because essentially that's everybody else's normal rehab time. But he's back, and there is excitement all around Philly for sure.
Didn't he call it too around this time? 160 days. I mean, that's phenomenal. How many times does that work out, Scott? I've never seen that before. But yeah, he's determined. He's a bulldog, man. So for him to pretty much call his shot about when he's coming back, I think that's really cool, and it's going to be really great for the Phillies, because once they get going, there's no stopping that team.
It's not like he beat the timeline by 2 weeks. He beat the timeline by 2 months.
It's crazy.
I think it would have been different. We saw Ohtani do this too. Remember when he had Tommy John a couple years back, and he could just hit. Hitting and throwing are completely different animals, because throwing you get kind of this way, and so the Tommy John is down here, right? Mm-hmm. Well, hitting is a completely different motion, and he had a brace he wore last year.
He's going to
wear the same brace. So I think hitting-wise, now the one thing I don't love is what Eric said, that he didn't go on a rehab assignment at all. So he has no at-bats. He has no at-bats since the World Series last year. Hasn't seen live pitching unless they've done some simulated games. That's tough to do during the season, though. I don't love that, but he's Bryce Harper. He's a better player than I ever was, so go get him, and I wish him the best.
So he's homering tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's going to hit 2 tonight.
How many homers tonight? Just one?
Not unless I pick it. Is that my lock? If that's my lock, then my guy's he's not putting a pump out. But
please don't touch that. It's part of my lock. We'll get to that later.
Uh-oh.
But did you see what Doc Roberts said to him yesterday? Because the Phillies are in L.A. They got smacked around by the Dodgers yesterday, and that's the other part of this is they're fine. Mediocre start, 15-15 for Philly, 4th place in the division, but only 4.5 games out of first. But Doc Roberts was like, really? Now? Couldn't you wait a few more days? It was funny.
You would have thought he would have waited till the home opener, or they get back home.
In front of the fans? Now, he doesn't care. He just wants to get on the field.
True.
There's the tweet from Fabian Ardea from The Athletic. He said, this is the quote from Roberts, "Hey, sit out 3 more days." Doc yelled at him when he was taking grounders at first base, which will be interesting, too. Bryce at first, maybe in July.
It's going to be a while, though, because to play first, you have to be able to throw.
Yeah, that'll be a while.
So I don't think that's happening anytime soon, because throwing, like we just talked about, is different than swinging.
Mm-hmm. Jackson said in the comments, Ohtani was back after 7 months as a hitter. So you're right, but
it's quicker. But they also had to be more
This
careful.
Is 5.5.
They had to be more careful with Bryce than Ohtani.
More careful with Bryce.
Yes.
No, Ohtani was back after 7 months. This is 5.5 months.
I mean, sorry, they have to be
more careful with Ohtani because he pitches. Yes.
Yeah, because he pitches. And so they're much more worried about long-term elbow than they are about Bryce. If Bryce has to move to first base, because let's not forget they had Reese, who unfortunately hurt his knee in spring training, and he was a free agent at the end of the year. So they could always say, hey, Bryce, you're great in right field, but let's slide on into that first base opening we have and find someone to play the outfield.
People think it's easy just to go to first base. This is a tough position, man, especially being an outfielder coming in. I think it's going to be tough for him, to be honest with you. It's a tough spot. You got to have good footwork. Outfield, you just got to get – I'm not just saying the only thing, but you run to go get balls. You got to have this great footwork. You got to make sure your foot's on the bag the right way, picking balls. So I'm sure they went through the whole gamut and, from A to Z to make sure he knew what he was doing. But positioning-wise, bunt defense, there's a lot that goes to it. So DH, I think, is a good spot for now.
Next up.
Well, no, hold on.
What?
No, just on Todd's point. They're not going to stick him at first base this year. You don't think, Kratz, will they? They'll let him go through spring training next year.
No.
He'll DH this. No chance.
He's going to play first base this year.
You think?
Yes.
I think they would wait because you got to do with all the things Todd just said. You got to learn bunt defenses. You got to learn positioning. And I would rather have a guy go through all of spring training and learning all of that before you just shove him in.
He's doing that before games.
I think you need longer than spring training too, especially if you're not an infielder. That's my argument. If you're not an infielder, you're going to I would go a month before or a couple weeks at least. Just do nonstop baseball first baseman work. I mean,
July 15th, baby.
That's when he plays first.
Todd Father, July 15th, he's at first base. He's
all right,
back on the
let's
field.
See what happens.
I think Kratzy, you're the Philly guy. You gotta help decide this shit.
You're the Philly guy, Eric. You figure it out.
Yeah, you figure it out. You've got
all I
friends
can
there.
go with is what they're saying, and they're putting all their ducks in a row. But if you're asking me, is he gonna play first? Yeah, absolutely, he's gonna play first. Is he gonna play first every day? That's hard to say because Bohm's made a nice transition over to first when he's over there, and Edmundo Sosa, who's playing third, is hitting the ball. And the biggest issue, they were afraid Sosa wasn't going to hit the ball. Now all of a sudden you have an elite defender taking up the left side there. And if Bohm keeps swinging it like he's been, I think they'll keep him at first. And Harper would just keep DHing. Ultimately, to me, you got to have Harper back out in the outfield. I understand you don't have somebody at first because they had no desire to re-sign Reese. But you can't keep running Castellanos and Schwarber out there on a consistent basis. Maybe mixing those guys in, and then you get Harper out there. I don't see first base as a long-term option yet because he's not, compared to the other guys, he's above average. I think he's probably more like an average outfielder.
But if you plug Bryce into first base every day, then you can use Castellanos as DH. You can use Schwarber as DH.
That's huge.
That's a huge thing. And then you go out and you it's easier to find a good defensive outfielder than it is to have a guy like Bryce Harper play first every day, and then you can mix and match with your DH. That's a bigger deal, especially if you're going to lose a guy like Reese, who, like you said, they didn't seem like they have any desire to bring back.
They have Pache. I can't now because he hasn't played much and hasn't played well. Admittedly, I used to know how to say his name perfectly. Christian Pache.
Pache, yeah.
Yeah. Phillies have him. I know he's hurt, right? Still with the knee injury.
Yeah, just a little. It was surgery. A meniscus thing, like 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean he is an elite defender. If he can ever hit, he is an elite defender, or at least a late game replacement for the team. I mean that's why they have him. I mean he can run it down with the best of them. But here, one more question before we move on. Chapman Mattis in the chat right now says, on AJ's point, hitting versus throwing. Any concern with the violence, whipping nature of Harper's swing compared to more orthodox swings? I mean, he's got a violent swing always.
But he played with this last year. He played with the torn UCL, which again is right here in your elbow. Mm-hmm. He played with it all the way through and then waited till after the season to have the surgery because they were on a run.
But now he got it repaired.
So it should be better theoretically.
But he didn't wait a long time for rehab. And he said it's not going to.
It's never going to be 100% until he gives time. You can't damage anymore. It's fixed, and realistically, it's not going to be fully healed till probably after the season.
I respect your opinion, but I'd rather also ask someone who uses a bat scraper. Todd?
My point is that the final thing here is comfort. His comfort level. I don't think his swing is going to be different, but, on certain pitches, is his motion going to be a little different, in the beginning? I don't know. So that's where I'm just going to see, like, comfort level, the inside pitch, trying to drive that what is it, the bottom hand through since he's hitting lefty. I don't know. I've never had it. So I always think after an injury, how much is your comfort level going to be? And I think, as AJ pointed out, no rehab assignment. He must have been facing live every other day at least. So if he's ready to go, then we'll see. We'll see how it pans out.
Where would he face live pitching, though? You're in the middle of the season.
Well, you got guys that are rehabbing, and maybe they're trying to get back going, and rookie ball guys too as well. Their season probably hasn't started yet. So
they kept some guys too. There was a whole story about it. I forget it already because I read too much. What?
They kept some new guys.
They had some minor leaguers facing him, I
flying
think.
into.
100%.
Wasn't he with the team?
Or they kept him back.
He was with the team, wasn't he?
Guess
Because I
what?
saw him in Texas.
Oh, you're in the minors. You got to go to whatever league and develop. Actually, you're staying for a few more days to throw to Harper.
Yeah, rookie ball doesn't usually start for what, Eric, another month or two?
Yeah, rookie ball's not till after June.
I was just informed he was facing Ranger Suarez and some other guys.
Yeah, so he's good. Yeah, Ranger Suarez is a good guy to face, I would say.
Yeah. He's a big league guy.
Yeah, he's
a little
number
more
3.
accurate.
Yeah.
Now, from two teams that are both playing basically 500 ball, one loses Aaron Judge, the other one gains Bryce Harper in almost the exact day. How are these two teams, if we take today, how are these two going to separate, and what should we be expecting from Bryce 160 days after he went under the knife?
I have no idea what to expect, Eric, because this is unprecedented. And I know it's different than a pitcher, obviously. A pitcher needs 12 to 18 months to recover from Tommy John surgery. Bryce Harper is a position player, and not only a position player in this particular case, but a designated hitter, right? So the threshold for him returning, for clearing himself medically, is much, much lower. That said, what he's still doing is amazing. What we don't know is, yes, how he will play. He hasn't had a minor league rehab assignment, hasn't picked up a bat since the NLCS, or the World Series, and it's just impossible to venture a guess. I would imagine it might be tough for him to get up to game speed quickly, but I don't know. This is Bryce Harper we're talking about. This is a very special, special player, maybe one of the all-time greats by the time he's done. So I expect at the very least his mere presence will help that lineup, because you have to contend with Bryce Harper now where you didn't before with the Phillies. And he'll lift them in an emotional way as well, again, simply through his sheer presence. So I'm excited to see what happens here, and it's going to be really cool. We've seen also he is taking ground balls at first base. This guy wants to do anything he can to help his team win, and most players are like that, but it's really admirable to see him take a little bit of a risk, I would say, by coming back this early, even though he's going to wear the elbow guard, and even though the doctors have said it's okay just to hit. But this is a special, special comeback, to say the least. And we've got him on Fox Saturday, Boston at the Yankees. Boston at the Phillies. Boston quite interesting right now as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him tonight.